Hello, this is my Dragonknight healer build. This is not something that is generally used often. Kind of more rarely, I'd say probably more in PvP, but this is a PvE build. He used to be first a stam DK, and then I changed him into a mag DK, and now he's repurposed as a healer. So, this is one you would probably use if you did not have any DK tanks in the group so that he can apply the buffs that are needed. And because Magicka and Stam DKs aren't frequently used either in in trials. I have healed Vhoff with him, so he is a viable option, and I'll explain to you why. That was when there was a Warden and a Sork tank. So things can be done a little bit differently than the meta. So if you want to explore and play and have fun, then here is an option for you. Probably not the best class to learn to heal on, but hey, do what you want. Make the game your own. Okay, so I apologize for his outfit, but he's just a little flashy. Okay, so he is actually, I'm not wearing any food at the moment, so generally I would wear Witch Mother's Potent Brew with him. That gives enough health, and he doesn't have the highest health pool. If you do want a higher health pool, you can, but let's just see what the mag recovery is with this. It's really high. You do kind of want a higher mag recovery on the DK because they don't really have any skills that help you regen it that much on your own, like a Warden or a Nightblade or a Templar would do. So if you do need more health, because 16k is a little bit low, you can either adjust the attributes so you can put points into health. That just makes your mag pool pretty low. Okay, so that is my back bar. Let's go to the front bar. So I'm going to put on by stat food so you can see the difference here. So that gives you enough health to be more viable. Okay, and you can also use tri-stat food if you need a little bit of stam. But as you can see, there's a lot of stam on this guy, and that is partly because he is a Nord. Okay, and the reason he is a Nord is because he started out as a stam DK. You can technically heal on any class, but there are certain passives, race passives, that make it more effective or easier. This is why I don't have much Magicka or Magicka recovery, because of his race. And you can see that in the Nord skills here. So he has stamina and health recovery, max health, cold resistance, and reduces damage taken. So he won't get as much damage taken to him, which is kind of a good trade-off, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend a Nord. Okay, so to the basics. I have on the Asylum Resto staff on him right now. He is the healer that I use the least often, so he kind of gets the leftovers. Okay, you can also put on anything that you want on for regular healer sets. He is using Infallible Ether, which you can single bar. It doesn't have to be used on the front bar, but that just means you'd have to heavy attack with both the back bar and the front bar. The good thing about Infallible Ether is you only need to get off one tick, not the full entire heavy attack, for it to proc. And you can tell when it's procced by the character turns pink. That also shows that Mending's been procced, but Mending is procced through using an area of effect heal ability, such as Orbs, or Mutagen, or Lustrous Healing, or Healing Springs, whatever you got. Okay, so he's just kind of in whatever right now. And I have his sets all messed up. But basically, you do mostly want to use IA and Mending on this guy. You could also use Jorvold's paired with anything. Olorime you could use as well if the other healer is not using it, but there aren't really any fabulous ways to place it with a DK unless you want to use Healing Springs. So probably wouldn't work on that as well. Okay, your monster sets you're going to want to use are the standard ones like Earthgore, or you could use Sentinel, or you could use Bogdan the Night Flame. I just don't happen to have full pieces on here. Do like to go 5-1-1 with this guy. 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy piece. 1 medium and 1 heavy each go on the monster sets. That is just a standard setup. And you want to do that because of the Undaunted Metal passives. I still need to get a skill point and throw it in here so I can have more bonus. He is not completely set up. Okay, so next is the skills. This is your front bar. As with any healer, you're going to want to have combat prayer on, some sort of shield. I like to use ward ally because you don't need a lot of shield yourself. Or you could also use the light armor shield, harness magicka, and have engulfing on if there is not another DK in the group. This means that you want to be the upfront and personal close healer, and that would be good if you're wearing mending, which is why I like to keep mending on this guy. You're going to be all up in it anyway. If your tanks aren't using Lord Warden, you can even use that if you want, since you'll be up in the middle of the group. Mutagen is something I like to keep on because of the tick heal. So if they get under 20%, they get a little health boost back. And I like to use Illustrious Healing. You could also use Healing Springs with this for the magicka recovery regeneration on it. But I use the Illustrious Healing because he needs a little bit of help healing. Warhorn is going to be your ultimate that you use the majority of the time. You're going to want to morph that. I just am out of skill points at the moment, so it would be aggressive Warhorn is the morph you want. Back bar. You can use Cauterize, which is nice. You get increase your spell crit rating when it is slotted. So you don't necessarily have to use spell power pots on this guy because you have the spell crit. You can make your own that is spell power and magicka recovery. So this heals over time. That's a nice heal. You just keep that on. It also looks kind of cool. And that little ball will float to the ones that need heal. If you'll notice, that is a skill that lasts for about 15 seconds. So luckily it has that visualization. You'll know when it's done. Always keep Elemental Drain on your targets. Blockade is to proc the enchants on your staff, which would be weakening on the back bar. And you can put Absorb Magicka on the front bar. You don't really want to use Crusher as much if your tank's using Crusher on their wall. Okay, Energy Orb is what you're going to use to heal and also to help regen. They restore the mag and stam for those that pop it. Fragmented Shield is the morph that you'd want to use for a healer. And this is set up for if there's no DK in the group. If there is, you don't necessarily have to run that. You can be a flex scale. It does give you major mending, which is nice. The standard of might would be what you would use to mostly to increase the damage done. So that's kind of nice if you're trying to have a fight that you want to get over quickly and you don't use your Warhorn. It is the same ulti cost, so just keep that in mind. You can also use it to apply Major Defile for those inside the standard, so they die faster. And it also reduces your damage taken by 15%, so that's something you could use like in place of like a Nova that a Templar would use or the Ice Storm that a Warden would use. Okay, some of your flex skills that you can use on here is if you need to use chains. Most tanks will use them already, even if they're not a DK. They have the Silver Leash in the Fighters Guild, so you usually don't need to use this as much, but it's there in case you need it. Make sure you have your passes up. Okay, and you can also use Green Dragon's Blood if you absolutely need to, but it's not something you usually need to use as a healer. You can also flex in Deep Breath if you need an interrupt on a certain fight. Okay, so for the Earthen Heart abilities, You can use Magma Shell as an ulti, wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Obsidian Shard is kind of like your Breath of Life, and I really like that skill because it like punches the enemy and it's just kind of a fun animation. So it slams them with solid rock and it stuns them. So you just want to be careful to do that on ones and fights that they're trying to chain in ads. Like I wouldn't necessarily use it on ads on the twins and V-Maul or something, but it heals them for a large amount, almost as much as Breath of Life does. Okay, so it heals you or a nearby ally, and I guess that'd probably be more like Honor the Dead, but it's a fun skill to have. So Igneous Weapons is also something you can throw on there. It gives Major Sorcery and Major Brutality, so that could be helpful. Just depends on what your group needs. And Cinderstorm's also fun as well. It reduces the movement speed and heals you and your allies. So it's not necessary, but it's something you can mess around and play with. And it's nice to have one of these slotted just because when you do your ultimate ability, you restore some stuff, okay? And you can also give Major Brutality and restore stam, which you don't necessarily need as much on your healer, but still nice to have those. Okay, so you can also use Crushing Shock as you need to interrupt. It's not necessarily something a healer would normally use. Restoration Staff. You can also level the ulti on there. I just haven't done that yet. Want to keep all your passives in there. Set up some passives in medium and heavy armor. And I made this guy a vampire just for the recovery and the undeath passives. Usually keep them at about 3 on the vampire stage. There's no extra need for 4. I don't usually make my healers vampires, but I like to give him more recovery because he just doesn't have as much max magicka. Okay, for Undaunted, you can also flex in or out the Sanguine Altar. You can use the Overflowing if your tanks or your other healer uses the opposite morph. Just check with them first. Okay, it does a little AoE heal, and the synergy is nice for Alkosh uptime. Bone Shield's also another option that you would do instead of Healing Ward or Harness Magicka for a shield. You do have a bit more stamina on your DK healer, so you can use this more often than you would on another one. You need to get this passive up higher, so you'll need to level that. You also do want to have Purge. You want to morph it to Efficient Purge. I'll be working on that. You can also slot Barrier if you'd like instead of the standard. Depends on the content. And you want to get your medicinal use up higher. Okay, so for the champion points, your green is pretty much your play style. Okay, so just put it in wherever you need to. This is just what I happen to have it on. The blue, you'll always want 100 into Elfborn and Blessed, and you can stick your other ones where you want. Okay, and this is the red CP is set up for the trial that you are going to be in. Let me know if you need that information, and I can give that to you. Okay, so this was the Dragonknight healer. If, like I said, it's not something you usually use, but it can be fun to use in some content. And they are still effective. It's how you play it, not necessarily the class, if you have good group composition in some manner. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching.